Wow, it's been a long time. At the beginning of last week, we had some pretty strong winds at home, so I took the little speed wing out to the local high school, tried to fly it for a while. This thing's pretty sporty and it hones your reflexes quite quickly. One wrong move and it'll flip over and crash nose first to the ground or lay back down. I've searched pretty extensively for some documentation on this Firebird checker wing, and pretty unsuccessful. If you happen to know anything about this wing or where I can find the original data for what its design intention was and what its loading and properties are, I'd sure like to read up on it. I don't ever plan to fly under it. It's just way too sporty. But it does do good for building your kiting skills. But I had a fun time playing around with it, and I got looking at the forecast, and wouldn't you know it, there was a tropical storm on the south side of the states that border the Gulf of Mexico. It looked like it was heading our way, and it looked like maybe as many as 6 or 7 days of high wind and rains. So I accepted an invitation to go visit a buddy of mine. He's got a little place and a hangar on a absolutely spectacular grass runway in southern Illinois. The only problem with that was that the forecasters got it wrong and the storm pushed further north. So we went to our old alma mater and looked at the Transportation Education Center and caught up with some old friends, some airplanes that I had flown back in college that are still on the payroll. Talking with some of the younger flight instructors, it was interesting to hear how the university has struggled to keep in pace with some of the regulatory changes and some of the FAA's mandates, some that have stuck around and some that have changed. Makes for a really interesting armchair study of the subject of flight training. We made the best of our time while we waited for the weather to improve. Got out on a couple of the local lakes, did some water skiing. You can see it's pretty cloudy here, although the winds had started to die down as the frontal system started to push through the area and slowly but surely move all of that bad weather out to the south of us. Weather improved, and they even got the fat old guy out there on the wakeboard for a little while. Of course, being airline pilots, the challenge of figuring out the airspace confused us. Then I had a couple failed launches, and eventually as things settled down we were able to get some flying in. I got 3 in one night and a couple in on the next night, and I learned some things. So here's what I learned. One is, not every single attempted takeoff translates into an airborne experience. I think the other guys that are posting this stuff tend to edit out a lot of their failures.
There it is.
You can take off with winds from a quartering headwind to a headwind, but when you get airborne, a lot of times the winds aloft are significantly different. And with the low speed of a paraglider, you are significantly more subject to the winds than you are in an airplane. Given that a 20-mile-an-hour wind is about your low speed flying speed, meeting a 20-mile-an-hour wind can be quite an exasperating experience. I set this landing back down almost immediately after I took off because of that reason. The next evening the winds were almost zero, so I tried a technique I'd seen on one of Jeff Goins' video of blowing a little bit of wind over the top of the wing with the fan, and then getting the leading edge to inflate, and I actually accomplished a zero wind launch that turned out pretty well. I've decided I really don't like forward launches in any capacity at all because it's very difficult to inspect all of the risers and your brake lines and make sure that you got everything right. But we went flying. I'm glad that I did. I had a lot of people watching because of all the interest the paraglider had generated at the grass strip and amongst my buddies' subset of college-age friends. But after so many years of airplane flying, I just couldn't do a power-off approach yet, and I needed a little burst of power to swing under the glider here as I'm still trying to get the hang of the brake amount to pull. Well, as the weather continued to push through, things continued to improve conditions-wise. I got a chance to see a couple deer from the paraglider, which was a nice treat. They're all over the place here in southern Illinois. Got a chance to maneuver the glider in reference to the ground with significantly more precision than I have in the past. I got additional chances to make some more steep turns and some working my way up towards more aggressive maneuvering of the glider.
Looking good. Nice job. Don't come back for a while. Looks absolutely stunning out there. Oh, yeah. Did he cut the engine? Yeah, he's been talking about doing that.
So here's something that I do know. When you are learning to land, initially you tend to be absorbed with the touchdown point. I know I was. Flying this paramotor, every time I would approach the ground, I was mostly concerned about my footing, where my feet were going to be landing and running out the landing. And I finally transitioned to looking out ahead at the horizon and using more of my peripheral vision to determine how much brakes to pull and to determine whether or not my flaring actions were effectively reducing my descent rate. Turns out this was one of the keys to making one of the best landings that I've made so far. This was really rewarding.
Oh, nice.
That was very nice. Very, very, very nice. So here's something that I don't know. For those of you guys that are flying reflex wings, when you get out and you let the trim out and you put it into reflex mode after you're airborne, what do you do when you come back into land? You haul the trims back in and tighten the wing up so that you have more lift and more slow speed control authority, more low angle of attack ability, or high angle of attack ability, I should say. Just curious, because I'm not really sure what to do. I see a lot of you guys making really steep, fast, swooping landings, and you carry a lot of energy toward the ground, and you convert that energy into the flare and forward bleed off of that speed. Works out pretty well for you in a very flat approach, or a very flat just prior to touchdown section. But what do you do with the trims? Nobody ever seems to mention that. Well, in my next video, we're going to talk about the aerodynamics involved of reflex wings and how they work on real airplanes. So if you haven't already done so, I'm going to do the Tucker Got thing here and ask you, please subscribe to my channel if you like watching stuff about paragliding.